First up is lot, plot, or site. All of these three words can actually be used interchangeably. A basic definition would be a plot of land assigned for sale or for a particular use, like a property development, or a piece of land owned by an individual or legal entity. The main difference between these words is that the term lot is typically used in North America. You might also hear the term site used more generally to describe location and more specifically to refer to a building site. Examples. We found the perfect location for our new office development. The site is zoned for commercial use and a building permit is already in place. The vacant lot at the end of the street would be an ideal location to build your new home. I would be more than happy to show it to you this afternoon if you have time. Next up is maintenance. The term maintenance refers to regular monitoring and upkeep of a property in order to minimize the amount of damage to its structure and contents. Maintenance is a standard aspect of owning a property. Equipment breaks and needs to be repaired, plants and trees need to be cared for, and buildings sometimes need a new coat of fresh paint. The word maintenance can be used to describe all of these activities. A lease signed by a tenant and a landlord will typically specify which maintenance activities the tenant is responsible for and which are the responsibility of the landlord. Larger properties usually have property management companies that either handle the maintenance themselves or contract it out to a third party. In this context, to contract something out is another way of saying to sign a contract. Examples. The roof is about 10 years old, so it should be a while before it needs to be replaced. All it needs right now is some maintenance. We hired a landscape architect to redesign the backyard. He said he would focus on plants that require very little maintenance. Property. The term property generally refers to any piece of real estate that can be owned by a person, a business, or another party. As a real estate professional, you know all about property. It's what you sell or lease to your clients, or what you acquire for your investment fund. It's what you work with every day as a property or asset manager. One thing that is important to remember here is that in English, we can use this term to refer to a plot of land and the structures on it, or just to a building all by itself. Examples. We sold the property for more than the asking price because the attractive location generated a lot of competition. It's a beautiful property near the water with a lovely view of the lake. Wear and tear. The term wear and tear refers to damage or deterioration to a property resulting from ordinary use, aging, or weather. When a tenant moves out of a property, they need to return it in good condition. Normal wear and tear cannot be avoided and is generally not considered a problem. Wear and tear includes floors in need of basic maintenance, faded carpets, and chipped paint. Many of the repairs that need to be done because of wear and tear are only on the surface and are sometimes referred to as cosmetic repairs. Examples. When we moved out, we got our full deposit back since there was no damage except for ordinary wear and tear. The lease specifies that the tenant is liable for any damages caused that go beyond normal wear and tear. To lease or to rent. As we discussed in detail in a previous video, which you can watch here, the terms lease and rent, when used as verbs, are often interchangeable. The basic definition of the verb to lease or to rent means to grant or hold temporary possession or use of a building, land, or similar, which means that a renter can use the rental premises for a certain amount of time for the payment of an agreed price, which is usually referred to as the rent. Example: we lease office space in an up-and-coming neighborhood where several new developments are currently underway. I rent a 3-bedroom apartment in a very quiet neighborhood near the river. To let. The verb to let is typically used more often in the UK than it is in the US. It is defined as granting temporary possession or use of a building, land, etc. Only the owner or landlord can grant such rights. Examples: the portfolio is comprised of 12 logistics properties, all of which are let to strong covenant tenants in the last mile logistics sector. The apartment building features 8 units, 2 of which are let to families, and 6 of which are let to single professionals who work in the city. Commercial property. Commercial property is defined as buildings or land that is used in order to generate a profit, like office buildings, retail stores, or similar. That means that the tenants or occupiers of that building are involved in some type of business. Remember, it's about the tenants or occupiers using the space to earn money, not about the party that is leasing the space to them. A residential property where people live is not considered commercial, even if the owner is making money off the rent being paid by the tenants. That's because the tenants or occupiers are not using that space for business purposes. Examples: we specialize in leasing commercial property to high-profile companies in the IT sector. We recently relocated our offices to a commercial property downtown. It's a high-rise office building in the heart of the CBD. Condominium or condo. A condominium is a building comprised of apartment units that are individually owned. However, the hallways, the gardens, and other common areas are shared. The word condominium can also be used to refer to an individual unit in a condominium building. In that case, you'll often hear people use the abbreviated term condo. Examples: I'm looking to buy a 2-bedroom condo in a quiet neighborhood near a park. The brand new condominiums boast breathtaking views and spacious balconies. Detached house. A detached house is a freestanding residential building that is normally inhabited by a single family. You'll often hear people simply use the word house to refer to a detached house. Detached houses are usually built on lots that are larger than the square footage of the house, so that there is room for a yard in either the front or the back of the property, and in some cases, a private garage for parking. Examples: I'll be showing the house on Saturday, It's a single-family detached house with a spacious backyard and an attractive floor plan. My husband and I are interested in buying a 2-story detached house with a big front yard in a neighborhood with schools nearby. Penthouse apartments. The term penthouse apartment is used to describe living area on the top floor of a building. It is often expensive and has great views. Penthouse apartments usually come with at least one rooftop terrace and typically feature large windows. Examples. Even at such a high price, the great views and the open floor plan made the penthouse apartment easy to sell. My client is looking for a centrally located penthouse apartment with 2 rooftop terraces and a fireplace. Rental. The word rental refers to any property that is offered for rent or for lease to an individual, a company, or an organization. However, you'll typically hear the word rental used in the residential space. You might also hear people use it to refer to a car that they are renting on a short-term basis, like for a business trip or during their vacation. Examples. We've been living in a rental for 10 years now, but we're finally ready to buy. I love this car. It's a rental, but I might consider buying this model when I'm ready for a new car. Residential property. The term residential property refers to buildings or land that are intended to be used as living accommodation. Unlike commercial property, which we talked about at the beginning of this video, residential property is meant for people to live in and not as office, logistics, or retail space. Hotels are considered commercial and not residential because they're primarily used as a business. Examples. We represent a wide selection of residential properties throughout the city. I'm sure we will be able to find your dream home. Our investment fund targets residential properties in central locations with a high occupancy rate and secure cash flow. Semi-detached house. A semi-detached house refers to one half of a dwelling that is made up of 2 identical or similar houses that share one common wall. If you live in a semi-detached house, you usually have your own yard and maybe your own garage as well. There are windows on 3 sides of the house, and the 4th side is the wall that is shared with the other house. Examples. My client is looking for a reasonably priced condo or semi-detached house. This semi-detached house comes with a yard that is surrounded by hedges, which gives you a lot of privacy. Studio apartment or bed-sit. A studio apartment, which is the term used in the US, or bed-sit, which is the term used in the UK, is a small, 1-room apartment that combines living, sleeping, and cooking areas in one room. Although some studio apartments come with a full kitchen, many feature a kitchenette instead. These types of apartments are usually quite affordable and are very popular with students and professionals who spend a lot of time traveling. Examples. I rent a studio apartment in the city where I live during the week. I commute home to my place outside the city on the weekends. We just sold the bed-sit to a nice couple who are planning to rent it out to support their retirement. New build. The term new build refers to a property that was recently built and that complies with the latest standards in fit-out and technology. You can use the word new build to describe a single building, like a house or an office building, or to talk about an entire development. Examples. The property development company just completed a new build logistics development that is now let to a strong covenant tenant. They are currently looking for an investor. The apartment is a new build and was completed this year. It comes with everything you need, including all the latest amenities and high-end appliances. Built-in kitchen or fitted kitchen. For starters, we use the term built-in kitchen in American English and the term fitted kitchen in British English. A built-in kitchen refers to cabinets, countertops, a sink and faucet, and often appliances like a dishwasher and a refrigerator that are a fixed element of a property. These elements have been built in or installed before the property is sold or let. Many residential properties come with built-in kitchens. In some cases, these are included in the price, but sometimes the kitchen has to be purchased separately. Office properties sometimes come with one or more built-in kitchens. Even more common in commercial properties, though, are kitchenettes. Examples. My client is in the market for a 3-bedroom house with a large built-in kitchen and an open floor plan. The kitchen was recently remodeled. The new built-in kitchen comes with brand new fixtures and fittings and spacious upper and lower cabinets. Okay, now let's talk about the word kitchenette. A kitchenette is a small kitchen or part of a room that has been equipped as a kitchen. Kitchenettes are typically what you will find in a break room at the office or in the staff room at a retail store. A kitchenette does not come with the same amount of appliances and amenities as a full kitchen. Kitchenettes typically have countertops, cabinets, and sometimes only lower cabinets, a sink and maybe a dishwasher, and a stovetop or microwave that employees can use to heat up their food. Examples. Our company is interested in leasing a large office building either in or close to the CBD. The offices should have flexible layouts with a kitchenette on each floor. Let's meet in the kitchenette during our break. I'll make some coffee and we can chat about the upcoming pitch. Next up is fit out. The term fit out refers to elements that make the interior space of a property suitable for occupation, like wall sockets, blinds, raised floors, data cabling, lighting, and air conditioning and heating. The quality of fit-out at an office building is particularly important, especially if you are looking to lease the building to startups or tech companies. Buildings that feature the latest standards and quality in fit-out typically achieve higher rents or purchase prices. Examples. I am currently representing a logistics service provider who's interested in leasing a single-story logistics property with state-of-the-art fit-out to provide last-mile logistics services to its customers. The new office high-rise boasts high-end fit-out and excellent access to public transportation and local amenities. Turnkey. The term turnkey refers to a property that is ready for immediate use. When a developer hands over a property in turnkey condition. That means that the new owner or tenant can move in right away and get to work. A turnkey home refers to a house or apartment that is ready to be moved into immediately and lived in without the new owners needing to do any renovation work or repairs. Examples. We only sell turnkey homes with unique city views to demanding clients interested in buying a property that will impress and increase in value. It's a turnkey office development situated in the city's most popular business district. You can move in as soon as we close the deal. Underfloor heating. Underfloor heating refers to a system of water pipes installed under the floor that is used as a source of heat. Sometimes an entire home, apartment, or office will be fitted with underfloor heating, and sometimes underfloor heating will only be installed in the bathrooms or the kitchen. The best flooring to use with underfloor heating is tile, stone, or engineered wood. These are hard surfaces and are able to transfer the heat most efficiently. Other types of flooring can be used with underfloor heating as well, but they might require special treatment. Okay, really quick before we go on, I don't know if you can hear that, but if you can, there's some construction work being done in the building, so there's some sawing or drilling going on, so hopefully that's not too annoying. Okay, now let's get back to our examples. The penthouse apartment in downtown Manhattan is fully equipped with high-end fixtures and appliances and features underfloor heating throughout. The bathroom comes with underfloor heating, which is perfect during the cold winter months. Year of construction. The term year of construction refers to the year in which a property was completed. You will sometimes see year of construction abbreviated as YOC. Another way of saying year of construction is year built. You'll often see this term used to provide information on a property in a listing or in sales particulars. The year of construction is a good indication of how much work it will take to bring the property up to current standards. If the property is an older one, it's a good idea to look at when it was most recently renovated and ask if any major repairs are needed. If you are selling a property, you should always let your clients know the year of construction and any years in which renovation works were conducted. Examples. The year of construction for this turn of the century landmark building is 1911. The property was later extensively renovated in 1985 and again in 2018. Some facts about this unique investment opportunity in downtown Berlin. Year of construction, 2021. Type of asset, mixed commercial and residential. Move-in date, Q4 2021. Prime location. In English, we use the term prime location to refer to a setting for a property that is considered to be top-rated or first class in terms of aspects like quality, infrastructure, and amenities. Prime locations are usually very popular with tenants and investors. The only downside if you are looking to lease or to buy is that property in prime locations tends to be quite expensive. But if you're looking to sell or rent out a space at a property in a prime location, you can expect tenants and buyers to be willing to pay high prices. The less available space there is in a prime location, the higher the prices will be. When that happens, tenants and buyers often start looking in what we refer to as secondary locations. Secondary locations may not be quite as attractive as a prime location, but they tend to have more space available and the prices are usually more affordable. We just sold an office building in a prime location in the CBD. Several investors were interested in purchasing the property, which started a bidding war and drove up the price. My client was originally looking for a house in a prime city location. When he saw the prices, though, he decided to go with a bigger house in a secondary location. Next up is the term floor. When you talk about property features, the word floor can refer to two different elements. The first of these is perhaps one that you are most familiar with. The word floor can be used to refer to the level of a building. Sometimes people will also use the word story as well, which is spelled like this in American English and like this in British English. The other use of the word floor when you're talking about property features is to refer to an actual floor or flooring that has been installed in a building. Examples of different types of floors include tile, hardwood, and vinyl. Examples. I'll meet you at the property at 10 a.m. Let's meet outside so I can show you the parking structure and the lobby, and then we'll head on up to the 4th floor and look at the units. It's a turnkey property. The owner just renovated the entire house and installed hardwood floors throughout. If a property comes furnished, that means it's available to be rented with furniture. You'll often see the term furnished preceded by the words fully or partially, which indicates whether a bed, a couch, appliances, or other features have been included. If an apartment is fully furnished, that means it is in move-in condition and comes with all the necessary furniture and appliances. If an apartment is partially furnished, that means it comes with the basic necessities, like a refrigerator, a washing machine, and a dining set, but not with other types of furniture and appliances, like a television or a couch. A partially furnished office typically comes with a finished layout, including a conference room, meeting rooms, and completed walls, ceilings, and floors. Like a fully furnished apartment, a fully furnished office comes with all the necessary equipment and movable furniture, including chairs, tables, workstations, file cabinets, carpeting, and more. Examples. I think I found the perfect space for your startup. The office is centrally located and comes fully furnished, which means you won't have any overhead costs for furniture. We just listed a partially furnished apartment and are hoping to get a good price since it offers tenants the security of having some amenities while also giving them flexibility to design the space themselves. Living area. The term living area refers to the total area of habitable space at a residential property. Living area typically does not include some areas of a property like the attic, the basement, any patios, balconies, open areas above stairways on upper floors, or garages. In some cases, a percentage of any patios or balconies might be included in the calculation of living area. The same goes for high-quality finished basements, depending on the current market. In other words, the amount of living area is not always the same as the total area of that property. Examples. The apartment encompasses 850 square feet of living area. That includes half of the 100 square foot patio. The large-scale new build residential development features spacious landscaped outdoor areas and roomy apartments with ample living area. Usable area. Similar to the term living area, The term usable area is used to refer to the actual space being used at a commercial property. Usable area includes hallways and corridors that are part of the space being occupied, but does not include common areas that are integral to the building, like a cafeteria, daycare facilities, technical equipment rooms, etc. Examples. We are looking for offices that offer enough usable area to combine our two teams that are currently working at two different locations. The building specs list sufficient usable area to enable us to divide the space into multiple units and attract a variety of potential tenants. Renovated. We use the term renovated when a property has been restored or modernized to repair damage or improve building quality. A building or a property can be fully renovated, which means that everything has been replaced and updated, including plumbing, electricity, and often the walls, the ceilings, floors, and sometimes the facade. If a building is described as partially renovated, that means that only some of the building has been redone. Partial renovation works might focus on just one or two rooms, or even on more cosmetic aspects like flooring, windows, doors, and paint. The turn-of-the-century building has been fully renovated to create attractive, modern office and retail space with a historic flair. The house was partially renovated before listing and comes with a new kitchen and bath, new windows, and brand new floors. The first term that we're going to cover today is basic rent. When a tenant enters into a lease, they need to pay money to the landlord to use the property. This payment is referred to as basic rent and only covers the use of the property. Basic rent does not include payment for utilities like gas and electricity and is typically paid in advance. Example. The tenant has agreed to pay the stipulated basic rent 6 months in advance, which provides additional investment security and guaranteed cash flow. The unit is let at a basic rent of $550 per month, excluding utilities and other service charges. Commission. Commission is a sum of money paid to a real estate agent in return for their services. Commission is typically calculated as a percentage of the purchase price of a property or on the basis of the monthly rent being paid. It's important to include the amount of your commission in the sales particulars or in the listing so that the client knows how much commission they will be paying and can include it in their calculations. Example. At our agency, we charge a commission of 3% on what the property sells for. The agent received a massive 10% commission on the sale of $1 million property. Credit check. Credit checks are run on a buyer or a tenant to ensure that they have sufficient means to cover the costs of buying or renting a property. A credit check helps the seller or landlord narrow down the selection of potential buyers or tenants and, especially in residential real estate, can help identify people who may commit fraud or determine whether it is likely that a person will not be able to make their payments. Example. The property is fully let to strong covenant tenants. We ran a credit check and they all came out strong with impressive credit scores. This is the part of the loan process where the bank runs a credit check to see if we will qualify for the loan. Deposit. When a property is being bought or sold, a deposit is paid before the property can be secured and functions as an initial payment for the future purchase. In this case, the deposit is often also referred to as a security. When renting or leasing, It is also common for the tenant to pay a deposit before the lease goes into effect. Depending on the size of the unit being leased, the deposit can range from 1 month's rent to 12 months' rent in advance. Example: the vendor requires a $30,000 deposit to proceed with the purchase of the property. The tenant has agreed to a deposit of 6 months' rent. That will cover any initial capex for upgrades to the property. Home and contents insurance. Home and contents insurance covers the cost of damage to or loss of a person's possessions while they occupy a property. A home and contents insurance policy involves various terms, conditions, and benefits that you need to consider before proceeding. If your client is financing a property through a financial institution, they will probably need to take out a home and contents policy before they move into the property. Example: the tenant is required to provide proof of insurance, including home and contents insurance, before signing the lease. The client decided to pay their home and contents insurance annually so that it is not a monthly expense. Mortgage. A mortgage is a loan through a financial institution that is repaid with interest over a longer period of time. A mortgage is typically signed over a 25 to 30-year period and terminates when it has been paid off in full. Once the mortgage has been paid off in full, the buyer owns the property. Example: we didn't have enough cash to pay for our first home flat out, so we needed to take out a mortgage. If we change our mortgage payments to weekly, we'll end up paying off our mortgage much sooner than expected. Property tax. Property tax is a government levy on real estate that an owner is required to pay. Property tax can vary depending on your location. Example: I've decided to pay my property tax in monthly installments, which makes budgeting much more manageable. We factored in the local property tax in our business plan, so it will not pose an additional expense to the fund. Rental income. Rental income refers to the amount of revenue earned from leasing out property to third parties. In other words, rental income is the amount of money a landlord collects from rent payments made by a single tenant or several tenants. Example: the office building is let to 5 strong covenant tenants and guarantees strong cash flow thanks to rental income that is above market levels. I was able to use my rental income to support my application for a new property. Service charges. Service charges are fees that tenants pay to cover their share of the cost of maintaining the building that they occupy. Service charges can vary, but are agreed upon before the tenant moves into the property. Example: the tenant is responsible for paying monthly service charges, including the property management fee. I've requested a service charge statement from the seller. I'll send it on to you as soon as possible. Depreciation. Depreciation is the diminishing value of a property over time. In other words, the amount of value that a property loses. A property can depreciate due to physical deterioration or other factors relating to its location, possible contamination, or market conditions. Example: although the building has depreciated in value over the past several years, it comes with considerable upside potential and could be refurbished and repositioned to increase its value. The value of the house depreciated greatly due to fire damage. Equity. Equity is the difference between the current value of your home and how much you owe on it. Property owners will often cash out equity to purchase additional properties. Example: I have $100,000 available in equity that I am considering using towards purchasing an investment property. We have more than $10 million in equity across the entire portfolio. First up is janitor or caretaker. The first point to note here is that the term janitor is typically used in American English, and the term caretaker is more standard in British English. A janitor or a caretaker is a person that has been employed under contract at a property like a condominium complex, a school, an office building, or an apartment building. The janitor is the person on site who's responsible for the upkeep of the building and the property grounds. This can include activities like cleaning public areas, doing minor repairs, removing garbage, and doing some landscaping. Example: the office building features a reception area, an underground parking structure, and a janitorial service. The janitor takes care of cleaning the public spaces and the landscaping on a weekly basis. Landlord or lessor. A landlord or lessor is essentially an individual or an organization that grants a lease to someone else. The landlord or lessor is the owner of the asset that is being rented or let under contract to the lessee. The lessee either agrees to make a one-time payment or a series of periodic payments to the landlord or the lessor in return for permission to use the property or rental unit. Example: the landlord has refused to fix the many issues at the rental property which the tenant has found frustrating. That is why they are now in the market for a new location. Lessee or tenant. A lessee or tenant is an individual, or in some cases multiple parties, who have signed an agreement to rent accommodation, office space, retail space, or similar for a period of time. Although the lessee does not own the property, it is their responsibility to look after the property. It's common for the lessee or tenant to pay a deposit of 1 or more months' rent in advance. Example: my client is looking for a tenant to move in immediately and requires an $1,800 deposit. Owner: a person or organization to whom a property belongs. The owner could be an individual, or the property could be owned jointly, and the owner is entitled to freehold possession. Example: I contacted the property owner to see if they were thinking about selling anytime soon. Real estate agent or estate agent. You will typically hear the term estate agent used in British English and are more likely to hear the term real estate agent used in American English. A real estate agent is a person who's authorized to act for another party, generally the owner, when it comes to renting, selling, or managing a property. As you probably know, becoming a real estate agent involves obtaining a license and relevant training. Example: I'm interested in switching real estate agents because my current agent is never on time and takes forever to get back to me. Auctioneer. An auctioneer is licensed to offer for sale or to sell real estate where multiple potential buyers compete to purchase the property. That property will go to the highest bidder. Example: the auctioneer was straightforward and prompt with the sale of the house and made the entire experience very convenient. Client. A client engages the services of a valuer or an agent and is the party responsible for paying the fees or commission of that valuer or agent in return for their services. Example: I have a few potential clients who are interested in purchasing your property. Building inspector. A building inspector is an authorized person who is qualified to inspect the building during and upon completion of construction. It's their responsibility to make sure that the building has been constructed in compliance with the building permit and other applicable regulations. Example: the building inspector will not sign off on completion of construction until the required changes have been made. Vendor. In real estate, a vendor is the person or people who are selling the property for the owner. You'll see this word used in contracts and in sales particulars. Sometimes the word seller is used instead. Example: the vendor has asked that interested buyers do not contact the tenants. Please contact us if you would like to schedule a viewing. Okay, now that we've covered some of the people involved in real estate, let's move on to our second section of bonus content: documents. First up is floor plan. A floor plan is a professional architectural drawing to scale. The floor plan shows the layout and the dimensions of a building, usually drawn between the walls to specify room sizes and wall lengths. Floor plans are a helpful view from above that show the relationships between rooms. Example: we requested the floor plan to see what renovation works would be possible so that we can meet the tenant's specifications. Sales and purchase agreement. A sales and purchase agreement is a legally binding contract for the sale of a property on agreed terms. The purchaser and the vendor each sign a copy of the agreement and then exchange these documents. During this process, a deposit is usually paid by the purchaser to the vendor. You will sometimes see the sales and purchase agreement abbreviated as SPA. Example: we will be unable to begin renovation until your client has signed the sales and purchase agreement. Sales particulars. Sales particulars contain all of the information that is relevant for advertising and marketing a property. This information includes a general guide to the property, including location, description of the land to be developed, or the landscaped areas if the property has already been developed, as well as key features, physical boundaries, photos, and references related to easements and covenants. Example: according to the sales particulars, the property includes 5 acres and is only a short 5-minute drive from town. Certificate of occupancy. A certificate of occupancy establishes that a significant refurbishment project or building is complete. It states that the project has reached a stage where it now complies with all applicable building codes and is in a condition that is suitable for occupancy. Example: we will not be issued a certificate of occupancy until the building inspector signs off on the last stage of the project. Certificate of title. A certificate of title refers to an issued document that indicates the ownership and interest in a parcel of land. Example: after we receive the certificate of title, we can officially include the logistics property near Oslo in the fund's portfolio.